recognize our co-conveners of the 4th Philippine Environment Summit. The DENR is delighted to partner with Green Convergence in bringing together a diverse group of people who share a common goal: to protect our environment and confront the climate crisis. The Philippine Environment Summit is an opportunity to exchange ideas on how we can work together to address the pressing impacts of climate change and urgent environmental challenges, as well as to discuss opportunities for collaboration. President Ferdinand Romualdez Marcos Jr. said that the Philippines has the distinction of being one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change, and for the welfare of our people, it is incumbent upon us to alleviate the environmental factors that contribute to that vulnerability. It is, however, important to note that this vulnerability is directly related to exposure that is driven by our development trajectory, which has been characterized by inequities in social protection and by disregard for the ways by which our ecosystems support our communities. The President also said that the preservation of the environment is the preservation of life, and this underscores the value of our ecosystems as our natural life support. The task of preserving life is not DENR's nor the government's alone. We all have a stewardship role to play every day when it comes to protecting our environment and natural resources today to ensure the quality of life of generations yet to come. According to the World Economic Forum's 2023 Global Risks Report, natural disasters and extreme weather are considered to be the most severe risks facing the world in the next 2 years. According to the report, in 10 years' time, failure to mitigate climate change and failure to adapt to its effects will become the most severe risks facing the world. On the other hand, the United Nations University's World Risk Report ranks first among the countries most risk to natural hazards. The IPCC's 6th assessment report has made us realize that climate risk does not stand alone. It can sometimes cascade and compound until it graduates into a disaster. It is essential, therefore, to confront the climate emergency using a systems lens and through comprehensive risk management. Because we live in a multi-hazard environment and an interconnected world, the risks we face cut across communities, sectors, and scales. The interventions we design to confront this complexity must therefore be transdisciplinary, time-sensitive, and spatially targeted in order for them to be transformational. We must invest toward prevention and preparedness for the kinds of hazards we know and those we have yet to face beyond our fence lines. We must work together to break down silos. If disasters do happen, we should see that disruptions are also opportunities for change if we invest in the resilience of natural, human, and engineered systems. In the DENR's view, this will involve the following. Number one, the establishment of a national risk register. This will entail a multi-stakeholder horizon scanning exercise to ensure that we have a shared understanding of risks to climate-related as well as other hazards. Number two, the creation of a national natural resource geospatial database. We need baseline inventories and valuations of what we are working with as both stock and flow. Number three, these two must be intersected as the basis for identifying scenario-based challenges to the goals of inclusive, resilient, and sustainable development, and strategies, laws, policies, and actions to respond to these. Number four, for the private sector, this would mean adopting climate and disaster resilience into their core business cycles. Number five, building convergence and unity with the CSO community to establish a new kind of multi-stakeholder agency as is exemplified by this forum. Number six, acceleration of the adoption of nature-based solutions with co-benefits to climate action. Number 7, investing in education, upskilling, reskilling, training, and capacity building to ensure a just transition in our labor force to enable them to compete in a complex, digitally interconnected world. 8, building geostrategic awareness of regional and global factors that will reduce our range of adaptation, mitigation, and disaster risk reduction options. The DENR continues to do our part in leading and accelerating climate action and in enhancing the integrity of ecosystems. This is especially important in Asia as it rapidly urbanizes and industrializes. With its population accounting for almost 60% globally, it has become an international hub for manufacturing and a production and consumption powerhouse. There are opportunities, particularly in the Philippines, which grew over 7%, to scale up the circular economy and pursue growth while moving away from the unsustainable cycle of the take, make, dispose model. Accelerating pathways to a circular economy is an essential strategy towards achieving our climate goals. In the first nationally determined contribution submitted by the Philippines to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, we committed to projected greenhouse gas emissions reduction and avoidance of 75%, of which 2.71% is unconditional, while the remaining 72.29% is conditional. This represented the country's ambition for GHG mitigation for the period 2020 to 2030, is set for the sectors of agriculture, waste, industry, transport, and energy. To reach our goals, green systems and processes and the uptake of circular economy and sustainable consumption and production practices are essential. The Cabinet Cluster on Climate Change Adaptation, Mitigation, and Disaster Risk Reduction, which leads the effective integration of policies and programs on climate risk management, disaster risk reduction, and sustainable development, has adopted a resolution on adopting the principles of the circular economy and sustainable consumption and production towards regulation and phase out of single-use plastics and a responsible transition to the use of environmentally friendly products. It recognizes and builds on the initiatives of its member agencies, such as the Philippine Action for Sustainable Consumption and Production, spearheaded by the National Economic and Development Authority, to support and accelerate targets of the Sustainable Development Goal 12 on responsible consumption and production, and the country's Ambisyon Natin 2040. The extraction and processing of natural resources causes half of global greenhouse gas emissions and over 90% of biodiversity loss. In order to identify and address challenges in the linear economy, including wasteful consumption, we continue to implement Republic Act 9003, or the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000, which was recently amended by the Extended Producer Responsibility Act of 2022, that aims to establish or phase in EPR programs for plastic waste reduction, recovery, and diversion. The DENR recently released the implementing rules and regulations of the EPR Act, and plans are underway to implement its various provisions in order to scale up waste reduction, recovery, and recycling. The recent enactment of the EPR Act gives us further opportunities to collaborate to combat the environmental damage caused by waste pollution and climate change, and helps establish circular and blue and green economy. As a designated representative of the President to the Climate Change Commission, we will focus on accelerating and completing the work that has long been outstanding for us to deliver on our international commitments. Among these are the National GHG Inventory, National Adaptation Plan and its Financing Plan, NDC National Implementation Plan, and the Local Climate Change Action Plans of our LGUs. our country must have ecosystem-based, rich-to-reef approaches that can enhance the characteristics of ecosystems to prevent disasters and mitigate the impacts of hazards. We must explore how nature-based solutions can address the food, water, energy security outcomes we aim to achieve. The DENR is naturally at the forefront of climate action due to our mandate of conserving, protecting, managing, restoring, and regenerating our country's environment and natural resources. The Philippines is also increasingly becoming a model in the region for our whole-of-society approach in disaster risk reduction and climate action. Today, the urgency of decisive climate actions has never been clearer. Climate change is a defining issue of our time, and it exacerbates other drivers of insecurity. As it accelerates, its impacts could have far-reaching consequences for society. The interaction of climate change, environmental fragility, and critical socio-economic vulnerabilities means that the risk dynamics across the region are changing. We are not only interconnected globally through political, economic, and social systems, but also through ecosystems, the built environment, and the digital world. While this constantly evolving situation exacerbates common vulnerabilities, it also creates opportunities for collective action. It is widely understood that any form of climate action requires the involvement of the public and private actors, as well as those from civil society. Civil society groups are able to support climate planning and implementation at the local level by demonstrating their value as innovators, conveners, and advocates, and they're able to form critical partnerships with communities and the youth. Green Convergence for Safe Food, Healthy Environment, and Sustainable Economy is one such actor that can provide access at the local level, bring on the ground knowledge, and build on trust they have already established within their networks. Their development paradigm of safe food, healthy environment, and sustainable economy addresses the need for social and economic upliftment while preserving life-supporting water, air, and land for future generations. Their network, composed of organizations such as Juan Foundation, Alianza Tigil-Mina, Zero Waste Philippines, Living Laudato Si, Eco Waste Coalition, Earth Day Network, Oceana, to name a few, represent a more inclusive and deliberative form of policy decision-making and advocacy. They are able to give voice to often underrepresented groups, thereby improving the democratic quality of actions pertaining to the environment and climate change. The Ako Ang Bukas movement of Green Convergence is an environmental movement whose central campaign, Quantum Leap Now, Climate Neutrality 2050, seeks to involve all sectors of society in the Philippines in taking urgent, concerted action to address climate crisis. Specifically, it aims to reduce the country's greenhouse gas emissions and increase carbon sinks to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. In pursuing a nationwide stock-taking of GHG emissions, the movement conducts training on the use of GHG calculators tailor-made for the different sectors of society. Young people, like many of you here today, have been calling for urgent action in the face of these challenges, and they have shown discontent with the incremental changes in response to the climate emergency. The youth play a significant role in ensuring climate justice, and it is important for us to build a workforce for the future that is climate literate and who will demand transformative action. Climate change is an intergenerational issue, which unfortunately disproportionately impacts young generations. When empowered, young people can build climate resilience and adaptive capacity in their communities to enable sustainable response against the impacts of climate change. In this light, the DENR is about to launch an initiative centered on the youth to promote dialogue between decision makers and young leaders and accelerate climate action by showcasing youth-led climate resilient initiatives and solutions. We believe that the best way to bring in new ideas and innovations is to include the voices of young people. In the words of former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, you are the most important generation in our history. The actions you take and the influence you bring to decision makers will decide the fate of all future generations. On behalf of the DENR, we welcome and deeply value the leadership you have shown by being present here today. Today's summit is a platform for talking to each other, and it is also an opportunity for us at the department to listen. We have a unique opportunity to unite the youth, listen, and involve all of you in any form of meaningful policy decisions and actions on climate change. As the President said, if we cannot mitigate climate change, all our plans for the economy, all our plans for the future will be for naught. Thank you very much.